Being Filipino is like, I guess it goes hand in hand with being Catholic. And I have the same sentiments towards Catholicism as I do towards my ethnic identity, in that at some stages I really want to reject it, and in other stages I do accept it. I would say that faith isn't an important part of my life. I would say that, but I would actually behave in the opposite way. There are certain principles of Catholicism that I've chosen to ignore, and my work, I guess, exposes the things that I challenge in Catholicism, namely the gender roles. I'm Marikit Santiago. We're sitting here in the gallery of my first institutional solo show, For Us Sinners, at 4A, Centre for Contemporary Asian Art in Sydney, Australia. And downstairs, my newest work is debuting for the first time, Thy Kingdom Come. The new work for this show is my largest and most ambitious work to date. It took 9 months to complete, 9 months that included 3 months of lockdown, homeschooling, sometimes only an hour of work a day, and I finished it the day before it had to get framed to be then hung in this show. It is an appropriation of Hieronymus Bosch's Garden of Earthly Delights, and it's a reimagining of my own creation stories, or my own Eden within my family. The left panel, which features my husband, is the scene of creation, and the middle panel, which has multiple depictions of my children, is the scene of abundance and life. And finally, come to the right panel, you see me as death and in punishment. The biblical story of Adam and Eve interests me in the way that Eve is portrayed as the sinner. Eve, having committed the original sin, is burdened, she's punished, and all womanhood after her is punished with menstruation and childbirth. But while for a time in your life it does seem like a punishment, it also allows the most amazing, most incredible privilege of giving birth and having a connection with your children.
And so what was the process like for that work?
Where do I even start? This is my studio that I've made in our garage of our humble 2-bedroom apartment in North Parramatta, where we live with our 3 children. Garage studio is a little dusty, it's a little bit dark, it's not exactly private. There are lots of interruptions and it may not seem ideal, but I've found it to be the most productive space for me to work and be the artist and the mother that I want to be. So what we did here today is generally the first part of my process when I work with most of my paintings, and that's allowing my children to make the very first marks. It's not the only mark that they'll make. They'll come in and out through various parts of the process and continue to make their marks, but for this particular piece, they've made the very first marks. I think I brought my children in to work with me because I was finding that with my work, compositionally, I made really interesting work if I could have a range of different techniques that weave in and out, and I find it really hard to make these really loose gestural marks. So as my children were starting to get older and were starting to make marks, I thought, why not get the most authentic, most naive yet confident marks directly onto my work? For this piece, I've sourced a very large piece of cardboard. I've been using cardboard in my work to reflect on the Filipino ethos of making do, but also more specifically reference the tradition of balikbayan boxes that Filipino migrants from around the world will send back home to their family in the Philippines. And my mum's done this for as long as I remember. So she'll pack a box full of grocery items and quite often my old clothes and old toys, and pack it up and send it to our family in the Philippines. And this is a practice that has occurred for years and years and years and from all over the world. So when I work with cardboard, I reflect on that, I suppose, colonial benevolence that we continue. But also the cardboard that I use itself carries its own migration story. Before it came to me, it packaged a dust collector. But even before that, it came through a friend who brought it to me, so it has its own migration story. With cardboard, it's that, it's supposed to be this disposable, throwaway material. And then I've taken it and I've applied these really rich materials to it. It creates this tension between what we value, what we don't. In the same way that having my children mark directly on my paintings, a lot of people have been like, oh my God, I can't believe you do that. But, it's just how you value their work. I value the marks that they make. And I think in a way, if they mark directly on my work, it diminishes the value of mine and places theirs in a higher esteem. And then having material like gold leaf and, layers and layers of oil paint onto the surface of something that's supposed to be disposable, it creates that tension. I find that really interesting. There weren't very many Filipinos at school, and I didn't move in those ethnic circles anyway, but in high school I really resentful of my ethnic identity, and I didn't want to be proud of being Filipino because I didn't really know what that meant. Even though I think I did know what it meant, I just longed so much to belong with everybody else and really I didn't want to have a name like Marikit that set me apart from all my peers. I just wanted to be included and feel like I belonged. I had someone come and say to me after seeing my work, and it really touched me. She said that she was really glad to come into a gallery and see herself represented, and this is quite uncanny. I mean, she had 2 girls and 1 boy. She was Filipina. Her children were biracial. She married outside of her race. And she said that she's often been to a gallery and has had to go into the Asian section and just try and feel some sort of connection towards Japanese or Chinese art, and that was just going to be the closest that she would ever get to finding some kind of herself on the walls. So when she did see my work, she really felt like that was her and she felt represented and that she was valued. And that's really the kind of work and the kind of response that really inspires me and that I'm aiming for. Motherhood as a subject is kind of taboo in the art world, but it's happening to me personally, and my work is driven by autobiographical experience. So this is the work that I'm making, and that I hope it speaks to the people that often don't feel represented. All right, yeah, we good? Cool.